Hey guys, and welcome to Go Build a TV. Today we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Under this hoodie, of course, we'll have our new product, which is going to be revealed very shortly here and actually made live during the stream. So you'll be able to jump in and buy that today. Alongside that, we're going to be giving away 10 of these new products to 10 of you guys, which will be really exciting, and you'll have your chance to jump in and enter that giveaway. We've also got some small things to go over. We've made a couple small updates to a few parts. The most prominent one of those is the 16-tooth pulley. That is the 16-tooth HGD5 6mm D-bore pulley. That in particular now has a bearing recess. So a bearing recess is kind of an internal term. We don't use it online a whole lot, but it is a feature of a part that allows it to run right up against a bearing. So in a bearing, you've got several components that are rotating. Primarily, you've got the inner and the outer race, which are the two components in a bearing that will rotate relative to each other. In an ideal world, you will never have something that's touching both the inner and the outer race. So that's why you will always want to use a shim between a bearing and a part, unless that part has an integrated shim like an 8-Rex collar, or it has a bearing recess that actually removes material out of the way to be ready for that to work properly. I'll actually pull up chat so you can see what you guys are saying here. So that's really the biggest upgrade. We also changed the material, so those pulleys are 70-75 now instead of a 60-61, which means your bore will be more robust with it being 70-75, which will be really nice. Let's see here. Ultraviolet FTC, thank you. These are our Go Build a Shop shirts. We've been talking about Go Build a Shop shirts for a long time, and we finally got them near the start of this season. Ooh, looks like a lot of people are wondering what the part will be. That's going to be really fun. I've been really excited about this one for a while, so that'll be a really fun reveal. This is going to be a first for us. We're actually going to show you guys how to do a modification to a part on stream, which is not something we've done a whole lot. So it'll be something that we'll actually show you with some tools I have here, which is really exciting. Overall, it's been a while since we've had to Go Build a TV. I know I'm really excited to be back at it and here for you guys. It's a lot of fun to stream and do all this stuff and keep you guys in the loop. Is the trike battery charged? Fleeting face. I think it technically is, but I bet the tires are pretty flat. At some time, I promise, we will get that out and actually have it running. It does have it has two large motors, but those motors ended up drawing so much current that it was beneficial for us to unplug one of the motors and just run one, because one of those motors at 60 amps is better than two of those motors at 30 amps, which is weird, but it worked out for us. It could just barely pull you up a hill, and it would pull 60 amps the whole time you were trying to get up the hill, which was really funny, but it's really fun. The Real Simpleton says, Ethan, I need to go in 10 minutes, please reveal. I bet we'll have it done. It looks like we'd be shooting for 4:15 then. We'll have to reveal it right before then. But I am really excited for it. This is something that the first I would not say version. Another implementation of this idea has been released on a previous Go Build a TV, so it'll be really fun. One of the things I've been really excited for is just overall some of the smaller parts we've recently released. The big ones that always come to mind that are just like super, I don't want to say underappreciated, but we don't use a whole lot, are servo couplers, because they just let you use servos in a whole new way compared to how you would otherwise. So those are always really exciting because they have a lot of versatility in the way you use servos. We also released a 12mm round bore hyper hub. This is nice if you're working with linear bearings or other Go Build a components that are 12 round. It's kind of a more niche part for sure, but hubs like that are always nice to have lots of options for. We made a small update to the 1206 pattern adapter. That is basically now it uses counterboard counterboard 632s instead of countersunk 632s, which should make that a little bit nicer user experience overall. There's a new 6mm to 6mm decoupler. The older 6mm to 6mm decoupler, we call it the Hulk's Fist because it had 4 screws right in a row to do that clamping force. This is the newest version of our hyper couplers, which is kind of our best version of a coupler that we've been able to design here at GoBuilda. It is just clamps really well and is surprisingly compact for couplers. So I think it will work pretty well. Let's see here. Is this going to be the Rent and Ethan service? No, it's not, unfortunately. That would be really fun, but definitely more difficult with COVID, especially. Maybe sometime when it's all blown over, we'll do a Rent to Ethan for a team out there. Let's see here. 101 Bob says, kind of unrelated, but what's the advantage of using the nylon ball linkages with threaded rod compared to just 2 flat beams for a linkage system? So nylon is actually a really good material for rotating assemblies like that. It is overall pretty free spinning, and a big advantage of nylon is that it's really robust as far as plastics go. If you're working with zip ties a lot, zip ties are going to be the #1 nylon thing people use, and I've never broken a zip tie really, and doing that is really tough. They generally will try to stretch and tear before then, but they're very good at impact resistance, which is where that's really important. So I think it would be probably comparable in terms of strength, and it should run a little smoother. The other big advantage is going to be the ability to thread that joint in and out. So you can really precisely tune the length of one of those bars in your linkage if you need it to be 0.7 millimeters longer. I guess you could rotate it half a turn. So it could be, you could adjust the length of that linkage by 0.35 mil, which is really precise. That's why I generally tend to use them. Definitely going to be a little more precise fitment to, like Red pointed out in the comments. You don't use Dollar Tree zip ties like OCam. I think we use a lot of McMaster zip ties here, but yeah, I personally use a lot of hardware store zip ties just around. We do have metal ball links too. They probably won't move quite as freely as the nylon, but they give you a lot of those other benefits. So they're really pretty solid. Let's see here. Thank you guys, team 15304. I'm always terrible at 5-digit team numbers. I grew up in the era of 4-digit, and that's just what my brain is really good at remembering. 5s are always tough for me. I don't even remember the team number of the team I am mentoring right now. Let's see here. Hello DJY2. See if I can read my computer from here. I don't have a whole lot of other stuff to talk about. The only other things we've released since last show was the 5mm hex hyper, which is a part we don't get a whole lot of requests for, but it's another one of those just nice foundational hubs to have. It's especially nice if you're hoping to run a mecanum wheel with the Rev ecosystem, because the hyper hub just fits mecanums really well. On the deeper side, you get just a hair of hub out past the hub, and it's overall just a lot easier to work with than a Sonic in a mecanum. So that was really kind of the primary use case for the 5-hex hyper, and a big reason we came out with it. Plus, it's another part to have, and it's pretty easy for us. There's really not very much R&D in that hub, just a little bit of size adjustments, really. So I think we are pretty much ready to show you guys this part. We have a pretty much like a whole show of stuff to just talk about. So I'm actually going to walk over here and grab one. I will be right back. Specifically, I'm going to grab 4, actually. So here is my stack. You can see they're kind of a nice black rubber, and they are, of course, a 96mm Gecko wheel. So a big hope for this wheel was just to make a larger Gecko that otherwise performed exactly the same. So it is the same 30A that you guys know and love. It's the same relatively very similar amount of compression. So the amount of force required to depress the spokes will be very similar between a 72 and a 96, which was a primary design goal for us. I actually believe I should have a 72 right here, so I can show you kind of side by side how those compare. And you can see the 96 is really just a scaled up version. The core is exactly the same. So that really nice fitment on 32 that you guys love, and the offset core. So the 12mm and the 8mm core on either side. These are kind of just another one of those fun compliant wheels that I think will be really nice for intakes, especially when you're intaking larger things like these glyphs we did a couple years ago for FTC. These end up being really nice at intaking larger objects. You also just get a lot more travel. Since the core is the exact same size, you don't get a whole lot of travel on a 72 compared to the amount of squish you can get out of a 96. So those 96s are really exciting. Chicken tenders, small geck next. That's definitely something we're really interested in. So I think smaller geckos would be really fun, especially for kind of some more custom roller intakes and stuff like that. Stealth X051, they are 96. So you can pair them with other wheel options in GoBuilda if you want to run multiple wheels. We've actually run a 6-wheel drive around with just the chassis, of course, on these, and it's really solid. Aside from getting dirty real fast, the biggest enemy of compliant wheel grip is dirt. Since they're so grippy, they tend to pick up dirt really fast and pretty often. So you want to make sure they are pretty clean, but otherwise they are really grippy, especially on something like this foam. They will just really grab on and keep a hold of it. I mentioned modifying these wheels. One thing we've played around with is just cutting the outer rim off pretty much. So this is one I just took a razor blade, an X-Acto knife specifically, and removed all of the outer rings. This can give you kind of a very interesting feeling compliant. This I feel like is going to be really cool in a game like Rover Ruckus, where you need to collect multiple different sized objects. And this is a pretty easy modification to do. The other one that I did the other day, and what the modification will actually be doing today, was inspired by an FTC team who's retired now, but their name is Omega Robotics. They were out of Sioux City, 7161, I believe. And that is to cut these spokes. I'll see if I can show it right there. So you get this wheel that tends to flare out as you're rolling it, or as you're driving it. I'll plug all this in so you can see. And that can give you just a lot of overall grip. It really is insane how much it can improve the amount of grip you get. So you can see it really noticeably expands even at fairly low speeds as far as expansion goes. But it really starts to grab stuff compared to another wheel, which is just kind of a standard flat wheel. So that's something that I'm really excited to be able to show. You can see there, I kind of made it so it would stall, but it's pretty darn good at grabbing those glyphs from a lot of different angles, which is something that I think is pretty important overall. So yeah, that's kind of a lot of the exciting things. 101 Bob 101, that 7161 is Hydra. I was thinking 7261, I believe. It's, of course, I just talked about how I was really good at 4-digit numbers, and now I can't remember one. I can tell you for sure they were the Edison Division finalists for Detroit Worlds 2018. They are the Edison Division finalist first pick. So if you can look that up, you'll be able to tell their team number pretty fast, but I'm pretty sure it's 7261. We'll see if that's right. I suppose I'll find out sometime. The Homies says that's great for intake. That is really their primary use case. They're an intake wheel first and foremost, and that's how they were designed. They have that same fairly even squish that you got out of the 72s, That is, of course, more noticeable on a 96, and it is a kind of nice progressive amount of squish, and it is really comparable to what you get out of a 72, which we think will help a lot of teams working with multi-sized wheel intakes. And overall, I think we get very similar smell out of the bag, which is something a lot of teams commented on with the 72s, and that should be really fun. While we're here, we should definitely start our giveaway. So I'll get that rolling here. Let's see if I can remember my giveaway keyword. I believe it's something to do with wheels. I'll have to double check that. Something to do with wheels for sure. I think it might just be wheel. We've got to get this actually signed in, of course, to roll our giveaway. But today we're going to be having 10 winners, which is really exciting. So definitely make sure to jump in there. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, I know I see there are a few of you guys. Unfortunately, we don't have a great way of getting our YouTube winners or our YouTube viewers giveaways. So if you want to be entered to win, you're going to want to hop over to Twitch and enter the keyword into the chat, and also make sure you're following to be entered to win one of those wheels. Let's see, it's really making me sign back in. It's probably going to ask for a two-factor authentication too, which of course it would. Why would it not? 7. Three, let's see here. I am sorry about that. 1. There we go. Okay, thankfully I can type on my computer as well, which definitely helps. So we're almost there to get our giveaway rolling here. Giveaways. And let's see here. There we go. So my keyword over there is wheel, which is pretty simple and easy. So just type wheel into the chat, make sure you're following. And sorry to you guys who are watching on YouTube, definitely if you'd like to, you can jump over. You can always find us at www.gobuilda.tv, and that'll give you links to go here or over back to YouTube, and that'll give you a chance to be one of the 5 winners for these wheels. So definitely let us know if you have any questions about these. They're not a whole lot of new technology, really. They have some different design elements that are really subtle, but even those really small things in a wheel end up making a difference. So something like this, having the exact compression being very even depending on where you're pressing on the wheel is really important, we've found, especially if you're in a use case where you're trying to move something along a flat surface. Something like a drivetrain, we found these are pretty good at. Even if the wheel is naturally under some compression, we've actually run these as a sort of suspension setup because it can run fairly smoothly along a surface, especially if it's under some load. Let's see here. Yeah, it looks like a lot of people are jumping in to get that giveaway, which is really exciting, of course. So that should be really fun. While we are here, I'm going to show you guys how to do that modification for these wheels as well. So this is the Omega Robotics style of expanding intake wheel. And it seems to expand at really not too high speeds. These exact are 1150 RPM motors, so they're fairly fast, but they really don't take a whole lot of speed to start expanding and start getting that real grip aspect in it. Let's see here. Do you happen to have a vid of the drivetrain with the new wheels? That's something I'm hoping to get pretty soon. That drivetrain is actually also a test bed for some other unreleased products. I really thought about rebuilding it to get it and to a point where I can show you guys, but I just didn't have enough time, unfortunately. What mouse is that? It's a Logitech G602. We've liked them. A lot of people here have G602s. Would you recommend Gecko Wheels for Flywheel for this year? We used Geckos on our Flywheel in the robot in 3 days, and I think it worked pretty well. I like Rhino wheels a lot too. I built up a shooter that shot, it had the ring travel 90 degrees around the wheel, and I liked Rhinos for that. Generally, your Gecko, either in a 96 or 72, is going to require less compression to get a really good grip out of that ring. Whereas you'll want a little more compression, a little more squish out of a Rhino, but I think your overall result will be very similar between the two. The advantage is a Rhino might be just a little more consistent. You should just show us. I thought about it, but unfortunately that's not something we could end up doing. So here I've got an X-Acto knife. It really doesn't have to be anything special. It's a fairly soft rubber, so it's pretty easy to cut. And what I like to do is definitely think pretty hard about where I make my first cut, because that'll influence where I make the rest of my cuts. So once you get it started, it really cuts pretty easily. I would definitely recommend like a self-healing mat if you don't want to carve up your table. And it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure, just kind of slowly apply some force and you should be good to go. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to make half as many cuts as I made in that other wheel. So we'll have kind of a nicer looking wheel that will follow the contours of the spokes a little better. And this is the exact same method we used to create this guy, which I think this feels like a really great wheel to contrast to like a surgical tubing intake, where you've got a lot of fingers, and this would I think have really good luck at intaking something like a bunch of balls or something like that. Dino W, GoBuild has just taken over the compliant wheel market. We're trying to take over the whole wheel market, I think. But we are really excited to be able to bring some more compliant wheels. It was something a lot of teams asked for from us a lot, so it's something we're really excited about. There we go. We are definitely not the first kind of squishy wheel out there, but we're definitely going to be an really easy one to interface with GoBuild stuff. So I didn't plan this out very well. I just kind of assumed it would work out. It did work out pretty well for me, thankfully. So now I've got this wheel. I had cut this one, so you have kind of a 2-spoke per slice, I guess. So you get this really kind of cool expanding wheel that will get up some speed when we put it on this intake. So we'll just unbolt this hyper hub. Actually, I'll leave the pinch bolts on the hyper, and I'll just unbolt the wheel. That's a more effective approach. I double checked this because I really don't remember putting washers on this. Washers do help, and the biggest thing they help is to stop the screws from digging into the plastic core. It's a pretty high quality plastic and it's very nice, but you definitely can dig into it with a screw head without some washers and stuff like that. Let's see here. How do these compare to the AndyMark compliant wheels? I think the biggest difference you're going to find is that we use a different rubber. Our wheels are going to be a silicone rubber, while the AndyMark wheels are going to be a TPU from my understanding. You might see some differences in performance. Something to note is that Durometer, even though FTC teams commonly use it as kind of a synonym for grip, it is not directly a measure of grip. It is simply a measure of how much something complies when you add basically you've got a set of calipers pretty much with a spike on the end, and you just press it into the material and see how far it compresses that material and how far that measurement device moves. The further it moves back, the harder that material, and the shape of the tip changes the shore hardness rating. So most of the time, FTC teams are going to use a shore hardness rating on the A scale. There's also a D scale, which is more commonly used to measure plastics and soft metals. And they're the same testing method, but it just has a much sharper spike. whereas the Shore A is going to be just a little more dull. It's really interesting, and the devices for measuring that really are fairly accessible. Mecha Muffin asks what the new product is. It is a 96mm Gecko wheel. Definitely larger than our 72s that we offered before, still in black, which I know a lot of teams really liked. So right now we're actually showing some modifications. I cut the outer ring off this guy. More accurately, I cut sections of the outer ring to keep as much spoke length as I can. So that's nice. And then these right here, I cut into an Omega style kind of gripper system. So when you spin it up, it will expand, and you just get a lot of grip. We'll use a... They're really fun. Flex wheel versus Go Build a Gecko wheel versus Anti-Mark compliant wheel. Flex wheels from a material standpoint, my understanding, are pretty similar. I am a dork and I mounted this wheel wrong, so I'm going to unmount this wheel again. Since both my cuts are going in the same direction, it's not very good. What are these used for? Particularly intake. Let's see here. Vex wheels also use silicone rubber. Yes, so from a material standpoint, I lost my train of thought there. Flex wheels and Geckos are very similar. The biggest difference you'll find is on a flex wheel, you'll have pretty much just a wheel that is entirely rubber, whereas on a Gecko, you'll have that plastic core with a Go Build a pattern. So you're more likely to interface a Go Build a wheel with a Go Build a hub compared to a Vex wheel, which you might stretch over a Versa hub or something like that. I think a lot of it depends on if you're looking for some harder materials. But the big place Geckos shine is working within the Go Build a ecosystem. That's where they really do a lot of good. So let's see here. Looks like we are running in the correct direction. And you can see this one that we cut every spoke definitely does expand a lot more. But these are just really have a lot of grip. We'll show this kind of running as an intake. Holding things that are spinning pretty fast is always pretty weird. I dropped my glyph. That was not ever a problem I really had in RR1. This is a pretty low ratio and my compression is pretty high. So I think if I was making another intake, I might go with a 13.7 as opposed to a 5.2. But they really do grab really well with this cut. This might be too aggressive for RR1, but in another game it might work really well. So yeah, they are a lot of fun and work really well in applications where you want something that's a little larger. You may want to play with a differential with an intake with different sized wheels. That can be really helpful as well. Let's see. Yes, you get the same amount of chance to win saying it once versus saying it 100,000 times. Just as long as you say it once, you'll be entered to win, and we will roll through the same entry of the same catalog of people for each wheel that will be given away. Let's see here. It is kind of funny. Definitely let us know if you guys have keyword suggestions for the future that are kind of fun and humorous. We're a big fan of puns here. Something I didn't know for a long time. I worked here for a long time before I realized that Go Build a was a pun, which is silly because it explains it on the front page. But I think it was 6 months that I worked here and didn't realize that our name was a pun. But it's Go Build a, and the reason the U is missing is because the only thing that's missing is you. And I feel like there should be a laugh track there. Every time I say it, I just want there to be a laugh track, but there never is. He's lying if you say at least 40 times. I can't confirm or deny that, but it looks like a lot of you guys have jumped in here and are entered to win yet. Looks like I'm still missing some people. So I have more viewers than entries, so if you guys have not entered to win, make sure you're following and make sure you've typed wheel into the chat. Crickets is accurate. I think it's not quite cicada season here in the Midwest, but if it was, they're normally a pretty good substitute. One thing that I kind of like here that I did is I added a little latching toggle switch to my intake build. It is a really nice way to test stuff out. I've just kind of wired it up so it's got an XT30 on one end and some bullets on the other side, and it just interfaces with the hole-in channel. This one you can buy over on Servo City, or I'm sure they sell them at a lot of local hardware stores. You can also get a double pull, double throw latching toggle switch, which will have 3 positions. You can have, generally your center will be off, and then you will have an on in one direction and an on in the other direction. And those can be a little tricky to wire up correctly, but you should be able to find a diagram pretty easily on the internet. And that's nice because you can then switch the direction really easily. So these are a really nice tool, and they're pretty cheap for prototyping and just getting stuff up and running pretty quick with the battery. Definitely want to keep in mind, if you are using a battery to power projects, that batteries are going to probably supply your motors with more current than they're likely to get in a normal robot running through in an application. If you're running your drivetrain in your intake, your drivetrain is going to pull current as well as your intake motors. So you might not get quite as much torque when you're running in a real life situation with all of those elements. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when you're doing that intake testing. So it's always best to actually finish your prototyping stages in the exact application they will be in. If a durometer isn't a good way of testing grippiness, what should we ask our vendors to compare grippiness? Coefficient of friction is the ideal. It tells you exactly what you need to know. The issue that you run into is your coefficient of friction changes depending on the material you are looking at. So if my coefficient of friction on this glyph is going to be vastly different than the tabletop, and that really comes into effect when you're comparing an intake wheel that's really good at stones to an intake wheel that's really good at glyphs. So that can be kind of tough, but Durometer is fairly good, especially when you're comparing within one vendor. It'll be really good. If you're comparing within one material, it'll be pretty good. And overall, it will tell you how squishy that wheel is. So, and a lot of times that does correlate to an overall grippier system. Ethan just wants us to buy 50 Gecko wheels to prototype with. Yeah, I guess. You caught me, I suppose. That seems correct. Time to go buy some Govilda stocks. I think if we were a publicly traded company, it would be interesting to buy stock. It would be interesting to see how a live stream every week would influence stock prices. I think that would be kind of fun to watch. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see. I thought whoever made Govilda accidentally did a typo. Jason E2212 says. That is I assume that's not what happened. I haven't been working here. I was not working here when they originally came up with the term and made the logo and all that stuff. So I don't think that's what happened, but it's definitely something that people misspell a lot. So, and because of that, a lot of our stuff, you can send an email to tech@GOBULILDA. I forget how to spell the normal spelling sometimes. And it'll go to the real tech address because people misspell it a lot. So it can be kind of confusing, and that definitely makes sense why you'd think that. The Thummins says, nice shirt, thank you. All that's missing is you. That is correct, Alan there. I suppose we'll go ahead and roll for some giveaways here. That's going to be I'm sure what you guys are really excited to see. And since we've never done a giveaway with so many winners before, so I'm kind of hoping that it goes all according to plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to close our entries, so you won't be able to enter any more. It looks like we got almost everybody who's watching now entered to win. And we'll go ahead and pick our first winner. It looks like Isaac IG7 is going to be our first winner for today. If you win one of these wheels, shoot us an email to marketing@gobuilda.com. We will and give us your shipping info, give us your name and shipping address, and some contact info. Your team number is always great, and just say, hey, I want a Gecko wheel on Go Build a TV. Please send it to me. I'm really excited, and they'll get that sent out right away. Looks like our second winner is WRC Kook 1. I think that's probably right. So congratulations on that as well. Same procedure. Shoot us an email and we'll get that sent out. Our third is Salami. I don't know. Something like that. Sailami. I really hope I didn't butcher your name. I'm sorry. I'm sure I will. Paul WOCH is going to be our fourth winner. And then we'll pick our fifth here. That's going to be SSURESH1. All right. We've got Candyman_500. That's an easy one. I can pronounce that one for sure. And we have got Lance Larson as another winner. 1, 2, 4, 6, 7. FTC Dude is going to be our 8th. Looks like Active Lively is going to be our 9th. And I think it's the T Homies. Sure. Is going to be our 10th winner. So, congratulations to all you guys. Shoot us an email and claim your wheel, and we'll get that shipped out probably sometime early next week, I would say. Probably going to be there in time for Christmas if you really wanted to gift it to somebody. Kind of a fun fidget toy. I have one of these at my desk all the time. Let's see here. I'll see if I missed any questions here. Can I send an email to support even if I don't win? Sure. We won't send you a wheel, but you can definitely shoot us an email. We've got 3 different support lines. We've got sales@gobuilda.com. They're going to be your best bet if you're wondering about shipping information, if you need to have some information on returns and a lot of that logistic stuff. Marketing is going to be our marketing arm. So if you have an event you want sponsored, or if you are a team and you're hoping to get a sponsorship, that's going to be your email to send to over there. Or if you want to give away on Go Build a TV. And then tech@gobuilda.com is going to be our tech support line. You can also give us a call during our business hours. We are open from 9 to noon, and then 1 to 4 on weekdays, Monday through Thursday. And you can ask for me, and I can probably help you out with some tech questions you have. Or if you're asked for tech, you'll probably also potentially get Kevin, who will help out a lot too. Let's see here. Just tuned in. Sorry about that. Looks like you just missed the giveaway. But if you just tuned in, we've got some new Gecko wheels. They're 96mm. The design intent for the 96s was to make them the exact same as the 72s, but bigger. So same compression amount, same even spoke compression, same durometer, just bigger. So they'll get a lot more compression out of it, and overall hopefully have a better wheel for intaking bigger objects like this. With that, of course, it takes up some more space, but I think that'll overall be pretty good. Time to call Go Build a number for Ethan. Hopefully you also have a tech question, because that would be kind of awkward, I think. Definitely congrats to people who won. We're really excited to get some wheels out to you guys. And if you don't have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to help you out, even if it's just sending you a video showing them in action. New 16-tooth Pulleys Explain. So the 16-tooth pulleys had a couple of small updates, one of which they have a bearing recess now. So you can push that pulley right up against a bearing, and it's going to act as an integrated shim, and it will only contact the inner race of that bearing. It's also 70-75 now, so it's a harder aluminum. It should overall be a better timing pulley, especially as far as the bore is concerned. if you're in an application where you need a lot of torque out of it, you might end up rounding out a 6061 D-bore where you would not a 7075 D-bore. It's a fairly, it's a mostly in theory thing. We've not had anyone actually round out the D-bore of a pinion pulley before, but it could happen. Let's see here. Laser Gaming 74. I tried to program the 9-to-1 high-tech servo to be continuous rotation. Found out it's not dual mode after we tried to switch it back, and it kept rotating. So to program the 9382, which I assume is what you're talking about, you need the DPC11 and you need the 3.1 firmware specifically. You can download that from the Servo City website on the 9382 page, and that gives you the tool paths, the tools you need for that servo, and that'll let you switch it between continuous rotation and back. That is, it can be kind of a tough process sometimes, but that is the process. If you have questions, reach out, give us a call. We can help you out. That servo can be a little picky about exactly how you use it. So if you are having more questions, reach out. We'd be happy to help you out. What's the price if we were to buy more? That is a great question. I believe it should be up on the website now. It looks like retail, you're looking at $9.99. Since you're an FTC team, I presume, you're going to be looking at paying $7.49 per wheel. So a little more expensive than the smaller wheel, definitely makes sense, but still I think a pretty good deal for an intake wheel. Really, especially with the FTC discount. I think either way it's pretty good, but with the FTC discount they really start to really hit it home. Golf Balls points out they normally show up on the bottom of the home page. You're right on there. That is exactly right. So with that, we don't really have a whole lot else to talk about today. We showed you a lot about these new wheels, and I'm really excited to see what you guys do with them. It's super fun to see parts that I had a hand designing on people's robots. So I'm really excited to see these on a few robots to come. I have come, as always, to suggest 8mm extra motors. We definitely hear you, and that's pretty much all I can say. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 9 of Go Build a TV. This aired on December 4th, and we're excited to see you next week. Next week, I think we're going to be talking about linkages, so that'll be really fun. I am really excited for that show. That's one of my favorite topics to talk about as far as building robots goes. If you have any questions, as always, reach out to us. You can reach me at tech@gobuilda.com, over on Discord or Reddit. I'm Ethan D at both those places. Thank you guys, and we'll see